Hey guys, how you doing? We're back and we're trying again. What it was doing was it was disconnecting because the speed of the wireless wasn't quite good enough. So we're going to try now. I want to wait for a few of you to join in. So welcome to episode, I think 15 or 16 of the Wellness Warrior podcast. Let me just close some doors. I'm in the obscure environment. I say obscure. I've been here about a million times, but obscure for my podcast environment of my wife's parents' house. Hey, we're back. And the stresses involved with creating a podcast. So my wife Al's just joined, so she's obviously checking if the Wi-Fi is okay. Just let me know, guys, what you think of the sound, what you think of the Wi-Fi and the connection, because it is a live video. We do record this podcast live, and it makes it all the more intense and therefore all the more enjoyable. But it also means that we just need to have good connections and make sure that all of you can see what it is that I'm doing. So, how are you all doing? I've been. I had a real epiphany today regarding my productivity. I think so I've been writing this book, Filling the Happiness Gap, for pretty much 3 years, and it was a wonderful journey. It wasn't just full of joy; it was full of some heartache as well, and a lot of struggle and stress at times too. But overall, it was an incredible creative process that I really enjoyed. And it's amazing when you stop something like that you just suddenly have this void in your life, and I'm sure as a lot of you can empathize. When you've had, let's say, a good analogy is if you've had kids in the house, bringing them up, and suddenly they flee the nest. It's that kind of thing. It's like you've been so dedicated to something for so long, and then when it changes, that environment changes, you notice there's a void. You notice that, wow, what do I do next? And I really had that over the last few weeks, and I was noticing that, like, my productivity levels just weren't as good as they normally are. Actually, that's too dark, isn't it? And I was trying to take on too many projects, and I was trying to take on too many things, and not really knuckling down to one thing, because that's this thing that we do in modern life. We have this disease of busyness because we perceive it to be a really good thing to be busy, because it seems as if everyone else is busy, so I guess we need to be busy too. And the crazy thing is that of course we know that's not true. We know that we are the masters of our own ship, and we get to choose where we want our soul to travel. And if we so choose that we don't want to take on loads and loads, then we can have that. We've just got to make some really important decisions about what we do and don't want from our lives. And suddenly when we prioritize, like, the really important things, it's amazing how many of those little things that we thought were important, they're just not. And when we realize that, we free ourselves up to have so much more spare time, so much more spare energy to enjoy life. And what I've done now is go, right, well, I've done this book, and next it's this podcast that I'm on now with you guys here. And I wanted to make this podcast the best podcast that I physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually was capable of producing, and that's 200 to 400 to 600 episodes over the course of 3 to 5 to 7 years. And I want to be in this game, and I want to be making this thing the best thing possible for me, because the way I see it is, if I'm going to bring real value into people's lives, I need to be the best human being I can be. And in me being the best human being I can be, it's to give the most of myself and see how far I can grow, see how far I can take this podcast, and the kind of guests that I can get on here one day, and just the kind of episodes that we can create. Because the better that this thing gets, the more I can help you. And the more that I can help you, the more it helps me, because that's why I'm here. That's why I do this whole thing. It's to help you live the healthiest, happiest, most fulfilled life possible. And that's what this Wellness Warrior Radio is all about. It's all about you living that best life you can. And even if you just take away a little microgram from each of these episodes, or just something from every three, or whatever it may be, even if it's just tiny, that for me, it is everything. It for me is why I do exactly what I'm doing right now, which is on my Thursday evening sitting here and just feeling inspired talking to you now on this call. So that's just my little intro. I just wanted to say hey, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about my vulnerable self. And I think what I had this fear that I wasn't really confronting, and the fear was restarting that next big project. Because when you start a really big project, it's scary. You know, you've got this big long journey ahead, and you look at how far the road is, and it's daunting. So what you got to do is you got to bring your mindset back to just now. Like, what can I do right now? Well, earlier on, I did notes for today, and I made loads of preparations, and I've emailed future guests that are going to be coming on the show, and we start the journey. It's just little things. It's never really a far ahead thing, because the future doesn't exist. It's just now. Take control now and see where it goes. So that's just a little intro from me. I just I want to make this thing the best thing possible for you, because I want to help you the most that I can. My friends, without further ado, let's get through to these 10 mood boosting tips to transform your year in 2017. So, what other year could it be? 2019? No. To transform your year. I think we all know it's 2017. Although, actually, having said that, I think I wrote 2016 on a form recently. That was a bit of a howler. Jesus. Tip number 1, time your carbs for better sleep. There's a lot of research out there that shows if you eat low carb during the day, so that's like bacon, eggs in the morning, and or midday, and like a chicken salad, avocado type thing, skipping the bread. If you just stick to those like meats, fish, avocados, nuts, few salad leaves, just very, very, very low carb during the day, and then when it comes to like 6 to 8 p.m. and you have your evening meal, you have a massive whack of carbs from like 3 bowls of rice and cereal and extra potatoes and all those good things that we love, those carbs. When you eat them then, it can lead to better sleep, deeper sleep. You wake up feeling like you have more energy. The more energy you have, the more likely you are to see the good in that day. The more likely you are to see the good, the more likely you are to look at the possibilities and look at the hope and think of hopeful thoughts and say nice things to people, and people say nice things to you, therefore, and just the day just goes on and on in this upward spiral when you slept well. First tip, time your carbs. If you want any questions on how to time your carbs, please feel free to fire them in. That is the very first one. Eat really low carb during the day. In the evening, load up on all your carbohydrates, and you're going to notice you'll sleep a lot better. Tip number 2. Boost your metabolism without having to run. Wouldn't that be nice? We have this idea that we've got to hit the treadmill in order to boost our metabolism and stay lean and stay healthy, and it's just not the case. I've got 3 options. 3, I'm not going to say they're pain-free, because we'll come to them in a second, but I've got 3 options. Excuse me. I've got 3 options for the laziest possible metabolic boosters going. Let's go straight to them. The first lazy person's metabolic booster, cold showers. Whenever you have a shower, just take a cold shower. It'll boost your metabolism by 200 to 400 calories a day, and you ain't got to even set foot in that gym. Option number 2. And you can just add this option. You can do cold showers, and you can do this next one. The next one is to eat raw ginger. Just bite it. Like I do this with my sister all the time. I have raw ginger and I say, "Here you go, Soph," and she's like looking at me like this, like, go away. And I'm like, "Go, Soph, come on." And then bless my family for putting up with my well-being habits, but she's like, "Fuck off." And then eventually she just grabs it and she chuffs it down and chews it in. It's not for everybody. If you can stomach it, the raw ginger, what it's going to do is it's going to fire up your metabolism, because ginger is a natural thermogenic aid, and what that does is increase your heating system in your own body, which helps you burn more calories just without doing anything. Again, you don't have to do anything with that one. And then option number 3, and again, you can bring all of these in. So the cold showers, the ginger, and then option number 3 is to, rather than train for hours and hours and hours and do loads and loads of walking and tons of treadmill and all this stuff that we perceive to be the way that, you know, you lose weight and you stay slim and you boost your metabolism, is actually just to do 5 minutes of high intense lunging, squats, maybe a few dumbbells on your arms, bit of skipping on the spot. Just 5 minutes, set the timer, and just go flat out until you get a really good sweat on, until you get your heart rate up, and then stop. And if you did that 4, maybe 5 days out of 7, you're going to boost your metabolism by 200 to 400 calories a day. And again, it's just that little thing that you can do that doesn't mean you have to spend 30, 40, 50, 60 minutes running on the treadmill. The more time you save, the easier it is to do. The easier it is to do, the more likely you are to do it. The more likely you are to do it, the better results you're going to get. So let's move on to mood booster number 3. Boost your mood without the need for chocolate, wine, or sex. Now, it's not to say that chocolate, wine, or sex aren't great. Not in that order, by the way. Let's not read into that, shall we? Here's what's amazing about this tip. It's perform random acts of kindness. Now, I read something somewhere that said, even to witness a random act of kindness, like even just by seeing it happen, like seeing someone help an elderly person off a train, or help someone with their pram, or help someone in traffic, or in a queue, or give someone some money when they need it, or whatever it may be, even just the act of witnessing the act of kindness gives us, the watcher, a boost in serotonin. And serotonin is your predominant feel-good hormone. If you're feeling good right now, it's because you're producing serotonin. If you do not feel good right now, it's most often because you're not producing serotonin. This is why people take Prozac, because Prozac is just pure serotonin. It's just, that's all it's designed to do, is just jack up your serotonin levels. Except the thing is that there are far better ways, natural ways of boosting your serotonin levels, like random acts of kindness. Now, not only does it boost it just by seeing it happen, but by doing it yourself. Now, what we're saying is, make the goal of every single day going out of your way to perform a random act of kindness. Now, you don't have to like freaking, trek 45 minutes down the road to a shop just to pay for someone's groceries, just to do it, like some extra massive effort. It doesn't need to be that. It's just the littlest of things. It's like, it could just be smiling at someone in the street and being vulnerable to offer that smile, because you might not get a smile back, you might just get nothing, but it's just in offering it itself, it gives you that boost. Like, there's one option. You've got another one that I love, which is when I'm in traffic, I just love letting people through. The next person's indicated, yep, go through. Next person's indicated, yep, go on, you go through too, you go through. And it's just that drive, it's just that little 10-minute drive to the shops turns into a really massive mood booster. And isn't it wonderful to think that you've got to do absolutely fucking nothing with your life, and yet you can turn it around. You can make yourself feel so good just by doing little things that change the way the inside feels, because that's where we live. We don't live on the outside. We don't live in our relationships, in that job, with that body, that financial success. We don't live on the outside. We only live from how we interpret how we feel, and how we feel is down to just those little daily habits. And performing random acts of kindness just gets you to raise the serotonin levels. Raise the serotonin, you feel so much happier, just without even having to change a single thing about your life. Moving on, let me try and hold the camera there. Hang on a second. I can smell right now the roast chicken from my family. I can hear all their cutlery, tink, 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 while I'm recording this downstairs. So I cannot wait to go and join them later, because I really smell that. It just smells unbelievable. Yummy. Oh, that water's a bit warm. Jeez. I think it's been on the radiator. Look. You know when you have warm water? It's kind of gross, isn't it? I'm going to have another sip though, because I'm dehydrated. Yeah. Number 4. Mood booster number 4. Let go of the perfect life that we see on social media. Social media is like the movie to the trailer. You only get to see the best bits. And how many times have you seen a trailer to a movie and thought, wow, yeah, that sounds amazing, that looks amazing, it feels amazing, I really want to see that movie. And you go to the movie and you're like, oh, well, that was okay, I guess. And it's happened to us all. Of course, it happens more times than not. And it's exactly like how social media is. So what we do is through these sometimes vulnerable eyes of ours, because I've done this, compared myself. Fucking hell, I would be, I'd hate myself for lying if I said I'd never done that. And I still do it accidentally sometimes. But when you see someone else's life and it does look like, wow, look what they're doing. They're climbing up a mountain or they're doing this amazing thing, and you're just sat there in that kind of like, bleh, and you've had a really average day and you're feeling a bit bleh and you're a bit tired and whatever. And you look at that and then without even knowing it, see, this is what happens. This is what fucking happens. Without even knowing it, we get into this kind of, that's what they're doing, this is what I'm doing, this is how I'm feeling. And that disparity, that difference, we ramp it up 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times higher, because we make this assumption that we're the ones living this really average, mundane, crappy life, and they're living the one that's really cool and spectacular, because look at that photo. But that's why social media is so fucking false, because it's not real. We've got to remember it's a bit of fun. Social media is not real. So what I want you to do to boost your mood for the rest of this year is do not go on social media. Do not go on people's profile pages. Do not go on that feed unless you're feeling really good. When you're feeling really good, you'll see the world through a set of eyes that just takes everything as it is. You will observe the world. If you go on social media when you're not feeling good and you're feeling a bit low and a bit blue and a bit shit, you're bound to end up feeling worse, because your lens that you see the world through is going to judge. It's going to judge you, it's going to judge them, it's going to judge everyone. It's just going to make you feel worse. So big one, tip number 4, notice your own state. If you're not in a good state and you're feeling a bit blur, keep the phone down, shut the phone off, ignore the phone. Just read, relax, go to bed. Next morning, everything will be fine. Let's move on to tip number 5. Tip number 5 is about how to reduce sugar cravings without going on a diet. Now, reducing sugar cravings is very simple. Eat less sugar. And we move on to tip number 6. No. Eat less sugar. The answer is eat less sugar. And I know that seems really fucking obvious, and it's because it is. And if it was that simple to do in reality, the whole world would be a million times healthier, wouldn't it? There'd be so much less disease, less problems with people's guts, less inflammation, less poor sleep, irritability, all these problems that we get from sugar. Less and less and less of that would happen if people were able to actually get a handle over it and stop eating cakes and biscuits and chocolate and all this and wine and all these sweet things. It's about eating less. Now, that's very obvious, because of course the less that we eat, the less we want it. I want to ask you, have you ever found that when you've eaten less sugar over the course of a few days, you just gradually start to notice that you want it less? And then you want it less, and then you want it less. Have you ever noticed that before? Well, the key is to going back to the start. So how do we start that positive snowball effect? Well, we start it by practicing ASITH. ASITH. Avoid stocking it in the house. ASITH. Because when it's not in the house, when it's not in the fridge, when it's not in the cupboard, we don't think about it. And I will be the first to admit that if there's ice cream or chocolate or cakes or puddings in the fridge, they tap away at here. And they're like, come on, Will, come and eat me, please. And before I know it, I'm in the fridge and I'm stuffing down a load of shit that I don't need, and I've ruined my good habits. Because in the end, what's interesting is that we've got to realize that not being on sugar and the feelings we get of health and well-being from that, and exuberance and happiness we get from having a low sugar diet, far outweighs the joy and happiness that we get from constantly eating the wrong stuff. Because we assume that eating the wrong stuff is what makes us happy, but actually it's not. It makes us happy in the short term, which is this little boost and little high, but then in the long term, we feel shit. And we feel shit for far, far longer than the amount of time of happiness that we got from eating that certain thing, if that makes sense. It's just better happiness math to eat healthily, to reduce your sugar intake. So practice a Sith, avoid stocking it in the house. Tip number 6, try emotional release technique. Now, if you've been having a, let's say, stressful time of late, I want you to do something for me now. I want you to close your eyes. So everyone on this podcast right now, just close your eyes and just listen to me talk, okay? I just want you to center your breathing. So let's take some breaths. Just keep taking breaths while I talk to you here. Move that out of the way. Now, emotional release technique, while you keep breathing, just listen to me. Emotional release technique is to locate an area in your body while you're listening to my voice that feels tense, feels like it's storing up something that has been going on. It might be to do with your partner. It might be to do with just you. It might be to do with, a money thing. It might be something going on with your kids or your health or anything that might be going on that you've not really consciously let go of yet. You might be holding on to it. And this is what ERT is, emotional release technique, is to just take a deep breath now and breathe out the tension that you're maybe storing up. Now, are you storing it up in your cheeks? Are you storing it up in your neck? Are you storing it up in your tummy? Now, wherever you feel as if you're storing it, I want you to put your hands on where you think that is right now. So just do that for me right now. Put your hands on where you think that might be. Now, for me, it's often here. It's often my neck. And so what I would do is I would feel my neck, and I would notice the kind of thinking that's been going on around why I'm storing tension in my neck, and I would sort of bundle it up into a little ball, all that thinking. So do that for me now. With your eyes closed and you're still taking breaths, just listen to me here. I want you to take all those thoughts, all those feelings, all those sensations that have been going on with that thing in your life that you don't necessarily want, that you've been not letting go of. And I want you to store it up, and I want you to store it up, and store it up into a little ball. And with that little ball, I want you to visualize that you're standing at the top of a view. Maybe the top of a beach, top of a cliff, top of a field, doesn't matter where it is. All I want you to do is imagine that you're standing somewhere where you're going to throw this ball. And what I want you to do is, as you take this deep breath out, I want you to throw the ball. Now, ideally, for me, this is my favorite, is I stand at the top of the cliff, this cliff that I have visualized, and I throw the ball into the sea, and I watch it go all the way and see it land in the water. And then when I look back up, I can see me without the ball. So I want you to do that now. Take a deep breath and feel it release. Take it one more deep breath And there you go. Just a little technique, little mood booster that you can practice anytime you need to. You just locate where it is you're storing tension in your body and you release it. That's tip number 6. Tip number 7, to reduce bloating. A key tip is to fast every day. And we you've got these fucking grandfather clocks. We've had about 1,000 so far. This house is full of grandfather clocks. By the way, noticing the old hair today. I know it's often a topic of conversation. I'm clearly a lot vainer than I let on. And we've got a proper old school dad style 1940s Saipan today. To reduce bloating, fast. So basically don't eat each day until about 1 o'clock. Now, the best way to allow that to happen is to have a coffee, obviously, or tea, like have a bit of caffeine, gives you a bit of a boost. Have water, lots and lots of water to stay hydrated. But the key that I'm finding now, this is me personally, I can only really tolerate 1 coffee. I always think, I seem to constantly make this mistake where I assume that if I go to the second coffee, that I'm going to get this big buzz of like, oh yeah, even more happiness. But I don't. I only really get happiness and that feeling of like inspiration from just 1 coffee. As soon as I go to 2 coffees and 3 coffees, I find the fasting thing so much harder to do because I just I get jittery. And then my sugar cravings go up because my body's a bit more stressed and all those kind of things. So I suddenly then start wanting carbs and all these things. So a big one for you, if you tend to have more like 2 cups, 3 cups, 4 cups of coffee, but you want to get the benefits of fasting, which is, you know, weight loss, improved clarity, focus, feelings of happiness, better digestion, a slimmer tummy, you know, less bloating. If you want all the benefits that come from fasting, and apparently it's now being proven to be anti-cancerous as well, fasting. There's thousands of benefits of fasting. But the point is, if you want those benefits, try and stick to just 1 cup of coffee. Because with 1 cup, you're not going to kind of overdo things, overspill things into stress. Because our bodies are very, very finely tuned. And as soon as it's like the old saying, you can have too much of a good thing. And it's one of those ones where you can just tip the scales. You go over that balance, and then before you know it, it makes fasting so much harder. So tip number 7, to reduce bloating, try fasting at least 5 or 6 days out of 7 until like 1 p.m. and try and stick to just 1 cup of coffee and then loads of water. Let's move on to tip number 8. I've dropped my glasses. These glasses are £1. How good is that? £1. Poundland. Who knew? Love Poundland. Who in here loves Poundland? Love a Poundland. I've just come up with a jingle for Poundland. They need to be paying me. Tip number 8, mood booster. Stay hydrated. Talking about hydration, let me have some of my really warm water on this radiator. A 1% drop in hydration leads to, and has been proven in studies, leads to a 50% drop in focus and clarity. Now, even a 1% drop in focus and clarity could lead to that person pissing you off when normally you would let it go. And if that person pisses you off in that moment because you've lost a bit of clarity from dehydration, that can end up affecting your entire day, and then it's the whole thing, the whole day, and sometimes even evening is a write-off, because you know how life works. It's all a snowball effect, isn't it? You know how just one thing positively can lead to another, can lead to another, can lead to another, and the same is true of the other way around. Stay hydrated. Keep sipping water all day long. I mean, I make a goal. I'm a big guy. I'm like 90 kilos. So I make a goal of sipping down probably 3 to 4, 5 litres a day, just all throughout the day. Big tip though is to make sure that you have a bottle with you at all times. Because if you tend to just do glasses of water, How easy is it to just go like 2 or 3 hours without remembering to drink a glass of water? Whereas what I like about a bottle of water is it's always there. And it's that constant reminder because it's right there next to you, and therefore you tend to sip it down a lot more. So if you want to just feel happier, drink more water. That is tip number 8. Tip number 9. Let's move on. Tip number 9. That warm water is pretty darn gross. I've got all these notes here with me today. And I kind of thought to myself, right, I'm going to prepare for today's podcast a little bit more because I value your time. I value your time. I want you to get the most out of today. So I really jammed in some quality content today, I hope. Hope you've enjoyed it. Tip number 9, mood booster number 9, balance work social diary. Now, I'll compare two people, person A and person B. Person A is busy, does it all, and they feel like they're drowning. They feel overwhelmed with the amount of stuff they've got on. They've got a crazy busy week. They've got loads on. They've got the kids to pick up. They've got the kids to drop off. They've got work to do, things to do in the evening, cooking, chopping, peeling, the bed sheets to do, the linen, organising loved ones, seeing people, getting workouts in, finding time for a bit of sex. Jesus, I mean, the list of demands and to-do lists and things that we put into our lives for work, but also for happiness as well, can be overwhelming. And what person A does is take it all on. They do every single thing and they feel like they're drowning. And it's one of the most horrible feelings that we can have as humans. And it's so easy to fix because when you're person B, what person B does is they have just as much on. What they realize though is there is this massive need to not expect themselves to be able to do it all. They don't set the bar so high that they just create this tremendous stress for themselves. And what person B is willing to do is say, I'm not going to take that on because I know I need to schedule rest and relaxation in there. And if I don't schedule the rest and relaxation, I'm no good to anyone. So what person B does, each time they are more realistic, that's the big word here. That's the big word. Let's be so much more realistic about what we try and get done. When person B is just more realistic, it's like adding a buoyancy aid to the water. It's not to say that the water has disappeared. They're still in the water. They've still got shit to do. They've still got life to deal with. There is still stress. It's not like we can ever fucking eliminate that. But what they've done is they've given themselves a buoyancy aid. And by giving themselves a buoyancy aid, they are there, they are floating, they're coping with it, they're managing it. Everything's going to be fine. But when we don't just set more realistic work and social diary goals for ourselves, we start to sink, we start to drown, we start to feel overwhelmed. And that is a horrible feeling. And it really affects our happiness. We feel just unhappy. We feel like we're not the ones in control of our own lives, but we can be. We've just got to do this one big thing. Can you do this for me, my friend? Can you just do this for me? Remember this quote. Just remember this quote. I do not know the key to success, but I know the key to failure is trying to please everyone. Are you with me? Trying to please too many people in today's life. And that includes our mobile phone. You do not, here's a rule to declare to the universe and yourself. There is no rule in the world that says you have to get back to every single email, message, WhatsApp that you get into your inbox, into your phone. Now, I make a real point of making sure I get back to all of your messages and your comments on my Will's Wellness Warrior closed Facebook group, because that's something I really, truly value. And I happen to be very lucky and very blessed that I have lots of spare time in my life, that I get to be able to do that. But if you're someone who doesn't have all that time to constantly respond to comments and messages and WhatsApp and people asking about social stuff and all these things, if you're not that kind of person, you do have a time poor life where you're very busy at work and you've got family, you've got these things. Don't feel guilty about not having to get back to everyone all the time. It just tends to add so much more stress than is really necessary. So tip number 9, find more balance in your work and social life. Find more balance. Don't feel guilty about not having to see everybody, saying no to certain people, not responding to certain people. Just allow yourself to just please yourself for a change. And that's like going to be like adding a buoyancy aid. You're going to feel like you can stay afloat. Tip number 10, this is the final one, is from Gary Tobbs. Now, Gary Tobbs is someone I want you to check out. I'm a big fan of Gary. I actually really like Gary's speaking style. A lot of people find it, a lot of people find it how they find it, but I just really like Gary, and I just have really responded to his work. A lot of it's about gut health. Now, Gary often refers to the gut. So what we mean by the gut here is like your small intestine. So you've got the intestine going down all the way, and then you've got this gut lining, this small intestine. He refers to the gut as the second brain. It's like when you get that gut feeling, you know that expression, to have a gut feeling? It's amazing how your gut is telling you something, isn't it? Now, that's why he calls it, and that's why it's often been referred to in ancient wisdom, not just modern science, but in ancient wisdom, the gut has been an area that people have known of. Hippocrates, the famous Hippocrates, was always noting and constantly writing about how if you improve gut health, you will improve happiness, because your gut has a tremendous effect on the kind of thoughts that you have. Now, if you don't take very good care of your gut because you drink lots of alcohol, or you eat lots of sugar, or you have lots of stress, what you'll tend to find is it's much harder to control your mind, because your gut is responding to your mind, and your mind is responding to your gut. So therefore, I'll give you an example. When you've been having loads of stress and unhealthy foods and maybe a bit too much booze, do you ever get that feeling in your tummy of just kind of nervousness and irritability, and like you're just not quite right? Could you ever feel that in your stomach, in your lower intestine? And do you ever notice it in your poo? Do you ever notice that your poo gets a bit, well, excuse the pun, but do you ever notice your poo gets a bit shit? It gets a bit loose, or a bit constipated, or a bit dry, or whatever. Well, it's all interlinked with your thinking, because here's an experiment I want you to try. 14 days, no booze, no sugar. If you've been going through a period of strong anxiety and strong stress and strong feelings of maybe even depression, let's say you've been going through anything where you just really don't feel yourself, I absolutely want you to spend 14 days doing a sugar and alcohol detox. And what you're going to notice is by the 15th day, I mean even sooner than that, but you're just going to feel how you really are. Because how you really are, who you really are, is just really great. When we are in homeostasis, when we look after ourselves, our natural default setting is to feel good. So when you feel good, you start to notice that life is really simple. And all those things that we thought would be the answer as to why it is that we're not feeling good, we realize weren't the case whatsoever. It was really just our decisions about the way we choose to control our mind, our body, and our soul that dictated our happiness level. Now listen, I'm not saying that we don't want to have a roof over our head and we don't want to have food in our belly and people around us, but once those basic needs are met, those next steps up in happiness come from things like looking after your gut. So tip number 10 is try a 14-day sugar and alcohol detox, and you'll notice that you sleep better, that you just feel less irritable, you feel far less anxious, you feel calmer, you feel happier. Give that one a try, my friends. This has been the 10 mood boosting tips to transform your year. I'm going to go and join my family now. Before I do, I've left a link above if you want to join my emails. And if you do and you join my emails, I'll send you a free thank you gift of my ebook, The 5 Steps to a Calmer Mind, More Energized Body and Happier Soul. That is all from me today, my friends. I'd love to see your comments. I'd love to hear how you found today. What did you find interesting? What did you find boring? What did you find shit? What did you find amazing? Like, just give me feedback. Like, just tell me what you found about today. What did you find out about yourself? Like, what did any insights come up for you? I'd also love you to write any questions to me, either personally, like a PM, or a personal message on my Facebook page, or an email, because I sent out an email today to you guys. So if you have any questions, just either email me or PM me, message me with things that I can bring into the podcast that I can then answer the week after. So that is all from me, my friends. I'm going to go. That was awesome. I had a great time. Thanks for having me. Loads of love, guys. Bye-bye for now.